Feb. 5, 1965. Dearest Suzie. This letter will be pretty short too, I'm afraid. I have to go out and might fly a while, and I want to get this in the mail before I go. I hope that you and the boys are fine. I've enclosed our income tax return. You have to sign it and stamp it and send it in. I asked for the refund in the form of a bond. I hope you don't object. This way, you will get a $100 bond at $75 cost and a check for $24. I'm going to put a note in to make the check payable to you so that you don't have any trouble getting it cashed. Things are the same for me. We do quite a bit of flying, but we aren't really hurting ourselves right now. I miss you more and more, and I love you so much. It will probably take at least 5 years for us to make up for this one. We didn't have any mail come in yesterday or today, so maybe we will get mail tomorrow. Tell Billy I'm still looking for a letter from him, and kiss all 3 of my boys for me. All my love. Bill. If you haven't listened to the past few episodes yet, you'll likely be a bit lost for the rest of today's episode. Long story short, I've split up a piece of writing of mine and I'm presenting it across a few episodes. I recommend going back and listening to the earlier part. Anyway, here's Finding My Grief, Part 5. Wow, okay, I said. And what was Poppy like to each of them? Would you say they were all treated differently? Absolutely. How so? Child 1. Well, Billy was the oldest, and we definitely spoiled him. We still had money then, and when he was the only child, we gave him everything. Pop always expected great things out of him, since he had it so much easier than we did when we were growing up. Pop would discipline him sometimes, but he wouldn't really hurt him that much at first. He would buy Billy little army outfits and encourage him to join the military, too. We could tell Billy was kind of nerdy, too. He didn't do great in school, but certainly always passed his classes. Child 2. The next was treated much differently than Billy. You know he's dyslexic, so he had a learning disability. At first, we didn't know that, and the people at his school thought he might have been stupid. He was almost sent to a school for the learning disabled. When Pop found out, he thought he was just lazy, and he beat him so bad. He'd smack him in the knuckles with a ruler or make him hold his thumbs out on the table and smash them when he was doing homework and got an answer wrong. Even after we got the specialist to say that he had a learning disability, Pop didn't want to believe it. Pop always called him fat and stupid and believed it. I had one of the doctors tell me that he was smart but just couldn't read like you or me, and that if he got a job doing something with his hands, he'd excel. Child 3. The third was a different story entirely. He was always so weird as a kid and didn't mind getting in trouble. He'd always pick fights with his brothers. Hell, one time he picked up a spear that Poppy sent us from Africa and threw it at his older brother. Thankfully, he missed. When I tried to break up the fight after, they broke my ribs. He was always misbehaving, and whenever Pop was home, he'd beat him so badly you almost wouldn't believe it. There were times Pop would hit him so hard I'd have to put lotion on his legs and back to help make his skin feel better. I think he became so afraid of Pop that he always tried so hard to make Poppy proud because he was so afraid. Child 4. When your dad was born, I told Pop that I'd kill him if he ever laid a hand on my baby, and he never actually hit him. He went really easy on your dad too, especially after your dad had that grand mal seizure and almost died. We don't know what we'd have done if we'd lost him. Pop did still call him fat and lazy a bunch, though. That was until we took him to the doctor and found out he had a bone disease in his knees and your dad couldn't run. Pop called him names all the way until the day your dad got surgery, and he realized the doctors weren't just making things up. He felt bad after, but obviously never apologized. So, I said, do you think that all of the different ways Poppy treated the boys led them to all turn out differently? Like if they hadn't been so far away from each other in age, and if Poppy had treated them more alike, they wouldn't have had vastly different lives when they grew up? Just think about all that they've done in all of their relationships and kids and everything. Why are they so different? Child 1. Of course. Billy got married at 18 to his first wife, who was a few years younger. She lived with us until they moved out. He got a job working at 7-Eleven right out of high school. They even started paying for him to go to college and everything. He didn't even really start classes, though. He got into drugs and hanging out with his friends, playing foosball and things like that. Looking back on it, he obviously had mental problems for a while, but we didn't do anything about it. We couldn't. Pop wouldn't let us talk about it, which definitely didn't help, and I tried to ignore it because of what happened with my mother. Then he and his first wife got a divorce, and he met a second wife who hated me. She drove him away from us, and he ignored all of us for years. They had their 2 kids, my first grandkids, and she used to abuse those kids so badly. That's why he divorced her. When he finally started coming around us again, he didn't even call me Mom, just Sue. After that, he met his third wife and had his next 2 kids. Once he used her name to scam people and steal money, she kicked him out and divorced him. As you know, after that, we tried to let him live with us on and off, but Pop didn't like it. But I always blame myself for all his problems. I always told myself that if we had done something to get him help with his head sooner, he wouldn't have been in a bad place. I figured that's why he was homeless so often. He also didn't want to get a job, so he didn't have to pay all the child support he still owed. Now, all 4 of his kids have grown up with their own mental problems and whatever else they're going through. Maybe his daughter wouldn't have had all 5 of her kids while on drugs, and maybe his oldest son would still be around today, but who really knows, you know? Child 2. The second got his job as a truck driver, which made Pop proud because he was able to make something of himself without having to read or write. He's done pretty well for himself, too, leading the yard and all. He had his first daughter with his first wife, and after they got a divorce, he met his second wife. They had their second daughter. I think he does a pretty good job now as a father, and he's still with his second wife, so he turned out pretty good. And he's a great grandpa. Child 3. As far as our third son is concerned, that poor boy joined the military right out of high school to make Pop happy. He was such a troublemaker in school, and we were so glad he joined. He went in with his best friend at the time, who also always got in trouble, and we were relieved they didn't get assigned to the same jobs because it wouldn't have been good for either of them. But he traveled the world, and when he got out, he used the GI benefits to get his college degree and master's degree. Pop was so proud to go to his college graduations, and I know he was just trying to make Poppy proud. Then, when he met his wife, we liked her, but didn't like how she kept making him distance himself from the family. They even eloped without telling us. They had their 2 daughters and were happy for quite some time until he had to travel a lot for work, and, was drinking and smoking all the time, didn't help with things with his own family. He was so hurt when his wife divorced him because he felt like he had sacrificed so much for she and the girls. I'm so happy he left his big job in California, but he was certainly making a lot of money, which seemed to make everyone happy. Child 4. Then there's your dad. He was working practically full-time before he even graduated high school, and we haven't really told any of the other boys, but he helped Pop and I out for a while financially when he was living with us. That could have been because we let your mom live with us for a while when she got kicked out of her house. Did you know that Pop was the one who immediately told her to move in with us when he found out that she was living in her car? He didn't want to hear about any young ladies living on the street and being in danger. Once they moved out, your dad and mom still tried to help us when we needed it. Lord knows Pop never asked for any help, but we certainly appreciated it. Then, when they had you and your brother, and you know what he was like as a father better than I do, he loves you boys so much and has always been so willing to give up anything to help you two. You know what, Alex? When you think about all 4 of the boys separately, they really did turn out so different because of how Poppy treated each of them. Agreed, I said. The photo I chose for today is another photo he took over Bien Hoa after the attack there by the VC a few months ago. A great reminder how vulnerable American bases were during the war. In the business, we call this foreshadowing. I'm Alex Lowy, and I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode of Dearest Suzie, and receiving messages from the past that my Poppy wrote exactly 60 years ago. I sincerely appreciate your time and interest. Please consider following the podcast on your preferred platform, and if you're enjoying it, I kindly ask that you take the time to rate the show and leave a review. Also, please follow the project on YouTube, X, and Instagram. All likes, comments, shares, and reviews will help grow the reach of this story. The links for these things should be in the description of this episode. Please feel free to email me at dearestsuziepodcast@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to say. I'd love to chat or to hear about your stories as well. Thank you for listening, and God bless.